Welcome back to Pokkén Basics. At this point you know the controls, mechanics, and terminology and concepts of Pokken. But when you get into a real match and the first round starts...
Round 1. Fight!
What do? I'm going to teach you how to create your own strategies from the ground up, starting with Field Phase. But first, in order to do that, I'm going to give a super quick overview of how Field Phase works and go over a few Field Phase specific options. Let's start with the Y attacks, which the game calls ranged attacks. Neutral Ys are linear attacks and they usually only combo and hit from far away, but characters like Chandelure can combo from any distance. They're used for poking at an opponent who is getting too close. Side Y moves you to the side that you choose. Some characters move farther than others, and the best side Ys are extremely good for lateral movement, which I'm going to explain the importance of in the second part of this chapter. Forward Ys are your go-to poke when you want to hit the opponent. They go far, and they're generally either safe on block, or they push back so much that it's hard or impossible for the opponent to punish. Your opponent can counter or CADC through it usually, but from max distance, it's a great option. If you don't know what to do in field, forward Y is a good choice. Just don't whiff it because the recovery animations are pretty long. Back Ys vary a lot and are character specific. Some of them are okay anti-airs, but it's really trial and error. All projectiles, not just normal ranged attacks, but also Pokemon moves, have different priorities. This means some projectiles will completely bypass others, some will go through each other, and some will trade and cancel each other out. I've linked an excellent spreadsheet of all the different projectile priorities by Shadowcat. You don't have to memorize the entire spreadsheet, but it's important to know how your best projectiles interact with other characters since it will help you decide whether you can zone effectively or if you have to go on the offensive. More on that in part 2 of this chapter. X is your homing attack. Just like it sounds, it homes in and tracks your opponent. Once you press it, in order to cancel it, you need to press block or jump. You can also home to the left or to the right. This increases the startup, but it lets you avoid certain attacks or setups that you wouldn't be able to with normal homing. Homing attacks have 2 or 3 different parts, meaning the initial hit with X, and then either 1 or 2 moves after it with XX or XXX. Whether your character has 2 or 3 hits of homing, you can charge the last one all the way, and that breaks shields and counter pierces. But the last hit has significant startup, so unless you have some sort of setup, it's quite risky to go for the final hit because it can be interrupted. Certain characters can cancel their homing attacks into completely different actions like Braixen and Darkrai. The inherent flaw with homing attacks is they have a distinct startup animation that looks different from walking, meaning opponents will start charging counter on reaction to it. So I feel homing is best used for whiff punishing or poking through the end of counter attacks that have been charging for a while already. One of the best uses for homing attacks is breaking throws. Homing attacks are throw crushes, meaning they beat throws every time instead of getting staggered. And remember how I said you can cancel your homing attack into block? Well, you can break a throw with homing, then press block, and the opponent will still be in their throw recovery animation, so you can follow up with whatever attack you want. Homing canceling is safer than breaking throws with other attacks or the regular homing because you don't have to commit to a move and you won't get hit if the opponent went for a counter attack. Homing canceling is very low risk, and the only real way to beat it is to walk up to the opponent and throw them really late after you anticipate their homing cancel will already be over. This of course is its own risk because you can get thrown waiting for the opponent to make a move. Long story short, if possible, when you expect an opponent to throw, homing cancel it. And if you want to throw somebody in field, delay your throw attempt until after you think the homing cancel will be over. Though personally I just tend to not throw opponents very much in field and opt for a shield break when possible. Last thing about field phase is compared to dual phase, there's an overall lack of speed and precision of attacks. In field phase, the fastest normal attacks are usually way slower than the fastest moves in duel. For instance, Blaziken's fastest normal is 17 frames in field, but 9 frames in duel. And when it comes to precision, dual phase gives you pretty complete control over the exact spot you want your limbs to go. In field phase, there are a lot of blind spots. Specifically, most characters don't have a fast move they can use to hit opponents right on top of their head, meaning many anti-airs are quite suspect in field. What this means is, field phase emphasizes overall spacing and movement rather than close quarters combat, because you have more control over what you want to do from far away and less speed and precision up close. Also, this lets you abuse certain aerial attacks without fear of being anti-aired, so you can take advantage of that. One final thing is, I already talked about how to shift from field phase to dual phase. Check out chapter 1 if you missed that. But the 21 hit counter still does apply to field phase. If your combo does 21 hits or more, they actually will get hit out of the combo. So when you're doing combos with like characters like Darkrai. With that, now you should have a good understanding of Field Phase. We went over ranged attacks, projectile priority, homing attacks and homing canceling, as well as some of the limitations of Field Phase. Now, finally, let's get into some strategy building. See you in part 2.